Hey everybody, Ryan here with Dartbolt Films. I want to take some time today to talk about filming with the iPhone. So a couple of things. I've used iPhone on a few projects now. I've been very happy with it for the most part. I just wanted to hit a few highlights of that experience and share that with you guys. So first off, some pros and cons. First one, this thing is compact and lightweight. Fits in your pocket. It's pretty darn thin. This is the 6, but even the 5 or the 5C, 4S, those are all still very small, very lightweight, easy to take and go anywhere with them. Next one is they're widely available. And what I mean by that is if you don't already have an iPhone, you probably know somebody who does. There's very common now, a lot of people already have them. There's no need to go out and buy additional equipment. You likely already have it available to you. Next one is these things have good video quality. Out of the box, they're going to shoot 1080p, and you can expand that even more with third-party apps. I believe some will even go up to nearly 4K resolution, so that's pretty impressive for something this size. Next is a common file format. Basically, you can take the video files that you take with your iPhone and dump them onto almost any computer, put them into almost any editing program, and it's going to be recognized and available for you to work with right away. No converting, no re-encoding, any of that stuff, which is definitely a plus. Tying in with that is easy file transfer. On the newer devices, I believe the iPhone 5 and up, you can airdrop your files if you have a compatible Mac, or you can airdrop them to another iPhone or iPad. For example, on one of the projects that I worked with, we did multicam with several iPhones, and we used my iPhone 6 as the primary, and then it was a couple iPhone 5s for secondary shots or B cameras. So once we were all done filming with the separate cameras, we airdropped all the video files onto my iPhone, and then from there I dumped all of them at once onto our actual editing computer. The airdrop made that really nice. We could do that right out in the field where we were, load them all onto a single device and review them from there. And then with airdrop for the Mac, as long as you have a device that's new enough to support that, and then with OS X Yosemite, you can wirelessly send all your video files right onto that Mac. No need to plug in with a cable or sync or anything like that. You just select the Mac as an airdrop recipient, shows up in your downloads folder. Pretty simple. Now, if you don't have devices that are airdrop compatible, or you just don't want to use airdrop, you can always just plug in your USB sync cable, plug it into your Mac or your PC. On the PC side, it's going to show up basically as just a folder or an external storage device. Open it up, copy your video files over, pretty simple. And the Mac is going to be pretty much the same thing. Plug it in, open up, I think it's image capture. It'll show all the pictures and video files that are on your phone, and then you just drag them over. Next one is definitely not an exclusive feature to the iPhone, but it works really well on the iPhone, so I included it on here, and that's instant clip playback. So as soon as you're done taking a clip, you can play that clip back right away and see what you got. Most digital video cameras are going to have that now. Your DSLRs are going to have that as well, but that's definitely a nice feature to have regardless. Tying in with the clip playback is the display on the iPhone, and this is excellent for both playing back your recorded clips and live monitoring what you're recording. The iPhone displays are very good. They're very true to the colors and everything that's actually being recorded. So when you're seeing it on the phone, when you dump that into your editor on the computer or you're playing that back on TV, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference. That's what you see is what you get. The next big plus for me was being able to do rough cuts right on the device using iMovie. There's tons of other third-party apps out there that will let you do the same thing. I chose iMovie because it came free with the device. Apple gives that to you free on any new devices after, September of 2013 or something like that. So most devices that you get now are going to come with that free. Works really well. It lets you import all your footage that you just took on the phone. And again, if you do airdrop between devices, as I talked about earlier, you can dump all that onto one iPhone, and that's all going to be accessible to you in iMovie, and then you can put that together into a sequence. So you can trim your clips, put them in the right order, and make sure that what you just recorded actually flows the way you want it to. A lot of times you find after you get back to your editing and you start splicing the clips together that maybe it didn't flow together quite the same way that you intended. If you find that out afterwards when you're back in the studio, that means potentially having to go out and reshoot. And with this, you can do it right there, right on scene, fairly quickly, and make sure that what you captured is what you intended. Another nice feature on the iPhone 5S and newer is the ability to do slow motion capture right on the phone. The slow motion capture on that is going to be 720p at 120 frames per second on the iPhone 5S and up to 240 frames per second on the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. Of course, it's not going to be quite the same quality as a true high-speed camera would be, but having that right on your phone is very handy. 720p is going to be sufficient for most use cases of slow motion. Usually you're only going to use a short snippet of it. You're not going to do big long films in slow motion. But again, having that ability right on the phone, right out of the box is really nice to have. No extra equipment, no extra hardware. The last plus I had for the iPhone was decent on-camera audio. It's definitely way better than my DSLR does for on-camera stuff. In most cases, I would still want to use an external recorder if possible, with the proper mic and everything. But for cases where you don't have that option, or you're just run and gun, you just got to record something real quick, you don't have time to set up an actual recorder or mics or booms or anything like that, the audio quality right off the iPhone is definitely usable for most cases. For example, Night of Terror, if you've seen that yet, our latest short film, that was all on-camera audio. We didn't set up any extra mics, any extra recorders, any dialogue, any on-set audio was right off the iPhone. Alright, now for the cons. The biggest one for me is probably the lack of manual control for most features on the phone. You can zoom, you can tap to focus, tap to set exposure, but in the stock camera app, you don't have a whole lot of control. The camera is going to do a lot of things on its own, and that's just not always going to give you the best image quality, especially for video. There are third-party apps that will give you more of that control. For example, the one that I primarily use, Movie Pro, that was recently updated just within the last few days actually, to add a focus slider, which I find really, really cool. That was one of the biggest things for me previously, is that you couldn't do a manual focus pull basically on the iPhone. You could tap and have it focus between different points, but you couldn't do a smooth slide between two different focus points on screen. And with that change now you can. They also added some nice white balance manual features, as well as some nice ISO manual features to really control the exposure of your shot. So it's definitely getting better, but in terms of the stock camera app, there's not a whole lot for manual control. The next one is going to be low light performance. The phone, having such a small lens and sensor, is just not going to be able to capture as much light as, say, a DSLR or a true video camcorder. You're going to get a lot of digital noise and grain, as the phone automatically is going to bump up the ISO to try and get enough exposure, and it's just going to make your image really noisy. The 6 Plus and the 6 have definitely gotten better over previous phones. It's been continually progressing since the 4S on. They've been getting better and better low light performance, but it's still just not going to match up to a DSLR or an actual video camcorder. Next one is the fixed lens. It's pretty obvious that you're not going to just screw on a different lens for this thing. This is built in, it's fixed, it's what it is, it's not going to change. There are kits, of course, out there where you can mount on your phone and add another lens or put some sort of modifier on the lens that's on there, and those are pretty cool. But it's not a stock thing where you can just swap out the lens, and really you wouldn't expect it to. I mean, it's an iPhone, it's not a DSLR, it's not a pro video camcorder. But for someone that wants to really have that flexibility, that's not going to be there out of the box. Next one is non-swappable storage and battery. One thing with pretty much any Apple device is it's basically fixed from when you buy it. You can't upgrade the storage, you can't swap out the battery or change that out. That's just kind of Apple's thing. So say you have a 16 gigabyte iPhone and you're taking video. Once you hit that 16 gigabytes, you either have to delete stuff or move stuff off the phone. You can't just add more. You can't swap out an SD card and give yourself more storage to shoot, which is unfortunate, but it's just a limitation that they have. Same thing with the battery. If you're out there shooting in the middle of the day, out in a field somewhere where you can't charge your phone, once your phone's dead, unless you have one of those portable rechargers, you can't just swap out the phone battery with a fresh one and keep going. Now, in most cases, both of those can be worked around. If you have a laptop or other thing with you, you can plug in the phone, offload your footage. Now you got fresh space to record again. Same thing with the battery. There's plenty of portable USB chargers. You charge up the low charger device, carry that with you. When your phone gets low, plug that into the charger device, and then your phone is charged up. But again, a regular camcorder or a DSLR, you're going to be able to just swap out the battery, swap out your SD card, and keep shooting. Okay, now for a couple tips on shooting video with the iPhone. First one that I definitely recommend is getting some sort of mount for the phone so you can hook it onto a regular tripod or any other film mounts or stabilizers or tripods, monopods, anything that you might already have. The one that I used is this little clamp here from Square Jellyfish. I think it was about $15 or something like that. Spring loaded, it expands out to fit different size iPhones. As I said before, when I was doing multicam, we had a few of these, and they would fit the other people's iPhone 5s. They fit my iPhone 6. They're small, they're lightweight, pretty good build quality. This one in particular is a plastic, but it's a nice hard plastic. The springs feel nice and strong. I'm not worried about my iPhone falling out of here. And then on the bottom, there's a traditional 1/4 inch thread for your tripod or any other mounting devices you might have. There's also a screw in the back here that lets you rotate the actual mount part of it. So if you wanted for a different angle, you can side mount it or turn it the other way and have it up on top of your tripod like a regular camera. These turned out to be a great investment, and they've definitely been a huge benefit to filmmaking with the iPhone. Next tip is to definitely use a tripod or some other sort of stabilizer if you are shooting handheld. That applies to basically any kind of camera. Any sort of stabilization or fixed setup that you can do, it's going to give it a more pro look. It's going to be a more solid, more stable look. And that's definitely going to help with the iPhone. Anytime you're shooting with something very small in your hand, you're going to get just a lot of hand motion. It's not going to look as smooth. Now, the iPhones have very good built-in image stabilization, and again, that's something that's been improving throughout. So with the newest iPhones, it's quite good, but you're still going to benefit from having it in a regular mount. Get it out of your hands, get a little wider base to it. It's going to be a lot more stable, a lot more steady. Aside from my regular tripods, I also used this stabilizer rig that I cobbled together. This is basically just a boom mic stand that I took off, and then I have a clamp here with a flexible arm with a standard 1/4 inch thread on the end here, so I can adjust this to how I want. Put the Square Jellyfish clamp on the top here, and then I can hold it out in front of my body and get just a little wider stance, a little more stable platform to hold the camera with. And then I can adjust this for one shot. I actually extended this all the way out, and I held it out in front of me like this, and then walked sideways for an interesting sort of dolly shot. But something like this is really nice because you can change it all around to be different mounts. You could extend it and also hold it up above to get almost a crane look, coming down. And since the phone is so light, you can use something like this and, fake a jib shot almost just by hand. And that's definitely another plus there. But anything where you can mount the phone, give it a little wider platform, a little more weight to it, it's going to add a lot more stability to your shooting. Next tip is to use a third-party video recording app instead of the stock camera app on the iPhone. Again, that's just going to give you more manual control, more options, more features, and take better advantage of the actual capabilities of the iPhone as a video recorder. Now, the stock camera app isn't horrible, and again, they've been improving that continuously with further software updates. It's definitely gotten a lot better than it was previous. But with a third-party app, you're still going to get more control and more features and the potential for higher quality video. The app that I use primarily now is called Movie Pro. I believe it's like $5 or so on the App Store. Again, nice manual features. You can lock exposure, focus, white balance, all important things when you're doing video recording. Another nice thing about having that is the ability to increase the video resolution as well as the video quality. I think the video quality goes up to like 225% on there, and that's just going to bump up your bit rate and give you more data to work with in post, and also just improve the quality of the video. With the video resolution, that lets you bump that up past the standard 1080p that the iPhone shoots. For example, on my iPhone 6, it lets me go up to 3072 by 1728. So that's going to be a much larger frame, which is helpful if you're going to be doing additional stabilization in post or any other sort of cropping on your video. It's going to give you more video to work with and still maintain quality, say if you're working at 1080p as your final resolution. A third-party app is usually going to give you control over your frame rate as well. For example, with Movie Pro, I shoot almost everything in 24 frames per second. The stock camera app is going to shoot in 30 frames per second by default. On the newer phones, it'll let you bump that up to 60. And the third-party apps will generally let you do that as well. In Movie Pro, I can shoot up to 60 frames per second at 1080. Or you can even bump that up and you can still do your slow motion at your 120 or your 240 frames per second on the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. But yeah, a third-party app is really going to open up the capabilities and potential that the iPhone has. My last tip is something I mentioned a little bit earlier, but that's to use a third-party app to piece together your footage on location, do a rough cut, and just make sure everything looks okay and flows properly while you're still there, while you're still in the process of shooting. That way, if you did miss something or something's just not right, you're not realizing that later when you're in the studio. You're right there on location. You can go back and you can reshoot that and fix what you need to. Again, I used iMovie for that. It came free with my device, and that's going to become free on most devices now that you would buy. If you get a used or a refurbished one from somewhere else besides Apple, it might not be free for you. But any new devices, that's going to come free. Works really well. Import all your footage, trim it, put it in order. You can even apply some video effects for one of the projects that we did. It was actually, the end product was going to be black and white, but we were doing all the black and white in post. So with iMovie, it let us put just a quick black and white filter on the video, and we were able to see how everything would look in black and white right there on that day. Put everything in order, make sure it flowed the way we wanted to, and then that was it. And that's something that you most likely are not going to get on a traditional video camera or a DSLR. If you wanted to do a rough cut, you'd have to import all your footage onto a laptop or some other portable computer device in most cases, and then do your cut. It's still going to be a lot of extra work. With the iPhones, it's all right there. So that's just a few of my thoughts on recording video with the iPhone. Again, it's been a really good experience, and I'm definitely going to continue to use the iPhone for video recording. I mean, it's just so convenient. It's small, it's always in your pocket, and it's got great video quality. There are going to be definitely cases where it would not be the best camera and you'd still want to reach for a DSLR or a video camcorder of some sort. But for many cases, the iPhone is a great video camera. If you have any questions on anything that I covered or anything that you would like me to cover in the future, just let me know in the comments or shoot me an email. Till next time, see ya.